Hey, Paola.
What up, dude?
What up, dude?
In middle school, that was my word. So when people they're like, "Oh yeah, Paula, that's her word, dude,
Dude.
dude,"
Well, I'm Father Sam Kachuba.
and I am Paola Peña
This is Roar Like the Lamb. Paola, tell me about your experience
with the popo,
with the Fairfield Police Department.
with the
Yeah,
popo.
tell me what happened.
Yeah. So doing what I normally do, hang out on the field with students, doing games, and so the police come up, and we're in the middle of water slide kickball. So like kids are having fun. They're screaming. I have music blasting because you need an environment for this. And the police comes up. He's just smiling. He's pretty chill. I thought like he like knew somebody, but there's always cops on campus
Right.
because they stop and somebody was like, "Oh, Paula, there's a cop. Oh, he's probably here to use the bathroom or something." Because that's what they do. They come here to use the restroom. And no, he just came up and goes, "Hi, what are you guys doing here?" I was like, "Oh, it's just a middle school youth group. We're just doing water slide kickball. Nothing out of the ordinary." He goes, "Oh, okay." So funny enough, like I got a noise complaint. I'm like, "You did?" He goes, "But this seems reasonable. The music seems fine." Yeah. Specifically, someone complained that they were screaming children and loud music. He came and showed up around 7:30 p.m. It's a summer night on a Wednesday.
Right.
What time is the noise ordinance?
I don't think the noise ordinance goes into effect until after 9 p.m.
Okay, but that makes sense. Like we're out of here.
Yeah,
And then
it was still light out,
it
in
was
other
still
words.
light out. And then a couple weeks ago, we did an outdoor movie. And then a couple weeks before that, we had paint war. So they were screaming like crazy
Sure.
because they were throwing things in each other's face. Oh, it's 10 p.m. We've been
Thank you,
corrected.
Chris.
Yeah, 9 p.m. sounds way
gotten
too that's more of a for
It's super
retirement
early,
homes.
right?
Yeah. And she goes, "Okay, just want to let you know, like, I mean, I could turn the music down for a little bit." So, anyways, then he comes back around 8:30, and we're just finally finishing up. So I'm like putting everything away. He goes, "Unfortunately, I have to take your name down." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm in the system now."
That's awesome.
Like he's got my name, my address, my birth date.
Yeah.
Like
If he had to respond to something, then he has to make an official report that the call was responded to.
Yeah, so he gave me a 2-sentence warning beforehand and thought he can get away with it. He goes, "I'm sorry, I have to come back and get your information." I was
Okay.
like, but it was a really nice cop. One of our kids knew them.
Yeah, of course.
And he was like, "Yeah, his son goes to school with us." I'm like, "That's cool." But the cop was so awesome.
Yeah. Well, look, the Fairfield Police Department, I really think
Phenomenal.
very highly of these men and women.
Yes.
They really do a good job. They're very kind people. Yeah. All right. So
it was just funny that the cops got called a youth group night.
Look, I can.
And it's not a party until the cops come. So I'm just like.
I can tell you that there is a house in this neighborhood that I can hear regularly throughout the summer with very loud music, with lots of people making noise, with cars parked all over the street. And I don't know that they've ever had the police called on them about this. I think it's amusing that somebody thought that children playing on a field was cause to call the police at early in the evening.
Blows my mind.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
At the same time, we want to be good neighbors, so
Yeah.
we're not trying to disturb neighbors or anything like that. But
No.
come on.
I think this must be a new neighbor because one of the houses had been up for sale. I'm just assuming that it was.
Who knows?
And
whatever it is, it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't.
What I love is that the cop was like, "This seems reasonable."
Yeah, this goes down in like good.
That's good youth ministry.
This is
That's good youth ministry.
That's good youth ministry is when the cops get called on you.
Exactly.
Like this is awesome.
Because the kids are having fun and making noise.
Yeah.
That's the good sign. Yeah. There could be bad youth ministry where the cops get called too. We don't want that, right?
We don't want to confuse that. No. This is specifically because they were growing in fellowship and having fun.
I love it.
And most of these kids are on the soccer team, so they're just really competitive, anyways.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was great.
Well, let's see what happens. All right, now by the time this one comes out, this particular episode comes out, we will be past the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Do you watch the Olympics?
Absolutely not. I only watch whatever gets put on the internet.
Okay, so you're not a fan when it comes to Olympic stuff?
No, I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. I'm not invested to the sense that I'm like going to take time out of my day to watch it.
If the Olympics are on
Yeah.
and I have free time during the day, I am watching the Olympics.
I actually forget that the Olympics are going on.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where
No,
I'm at.
my go-to is if I've got free time
Oh.
during the day and the Olympics are on, I'm turning on the TV and I'm watching as many events as I can,
Oh.
and I'll flip between all the NBC channels.
Okay.
So I'll go like they've got the regular NBC, then there's a lot of times on USA they've also got it, and then there's NBC Sports, and I'll just flip between the three channels to see what's on. And when they go to commercial break, I try to catch, like, hopefully before the next network goes to commercial break. I'm trying to catch up. I'm just fascinated by the Olympics, and I always have been. I think they're great.
Yeah.
Have you seen Olympic handball?
I heard that this is a new sport this year.
No. Olympic beach handball, I think, is the new sport this year.
Oh.
I think.
Okay.
Olympic handball has been in for a long time. Olympic handball is kind of a combination between basketball and soccer. So instead of a basket, there's a goal.
I mean, I've played handball in middle school.
Like handball, not like
the game,
not like racquetball or squash.
Right, handball. Yeah.
But like you've got a team and you're passing the ball back and forth to one another, and you're throwing it to get into a goal.
Yeah, it was my favorite game in middle school.
Yeah. So this sport is dominated by Europeans.
Oh.
And it confuses me to no end that this sport has not become a staple in America. This game, all right, think of how Olympic handball works. It involves throwing.
Yeah.
It involves running.
Yeah.
It involves physical contact. You're allowed to like knock people over and stuff.
Yeah.
It involves jumping. These are all things that are like native skills to Americans. We run, we jump, we throw, and we knock things over. This is a thing that we do in all of our sports. How in the world is America not dominating the global scene of Olympic handball? This kills me. Europe has professional leagues for handball.
You're very
and
into this.
I'm so confused. I feel like look, I've watched the game enough, and that means once every 4 years when there's a summer Olympiad, I watch Olympic handball. So that makes me a qualified expert. Okay, I have seen a sufficient amount of this sport to know everything. No, of course not. I'm not an athlete. Come on.
No, but like this is I'm being dead serious. This was part of like high school and middle school curriculum.
Sure.
In Stanford. Yeah.
And unfortunately, it never leaves the phys ed program.
No.
It never becomes a team sport. It never becomes something that kids take seriously.
Yeah.
It's kind of looked at as, this is something
that's a fun
like,
game.
Yeah. If you're not really good at basketball or football or baseball or anything else, you're gonna play this.
I liked it. Mat ball.
But I think that there's really something to this sport. Like it's really, really cool. But at the same time, I can see that sometimes our basketball players are better athletes than what you might have there. Our football players are better. Our soccer players even. And soccer is not an American sport for us. It's not one that we ever have great success in. So I guess I can see this. But my feeling is, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I think I'm quite correct about this.
Yeah.
All we need to do is take a bunch of guys who played college football, college basketball, even college soccer, all right? But preferably the college basketball and the college football players, because they're going to be better at throwing. Okay. Right? And get some college baseball players in there too, right? Guys who maybe aren't going to make it to the next level professionally with these sports, but are still phenomenal athletes that they were able to play at the highest collegiate level. And I think that all we need to do is give them like maybe a week-long summer camp where all they do all day is play handball. And I'm convinced that they could then go up against the best. Now, that's my expert opinion, having watched Olympic handball once every 4 years for the last 12 years or so.
So you're saying America has potential?
Oh, I think unlimited potential. In fact, the last time America was represented in the Olympics in Olympic handball, I believe, was the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, because we were the host country. And the host country gets an automatic bid in every single event. And I think that was the last time that we were represented. And in fact, there is a priest, Father Joe Fitzgerald, of Rockville Center, Long Island, who played on that Olympic handball team.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And he's a former.
Your buddy?
He's a former college football player.
No way.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I'm convinced, like, we could do this if we would just invest a little bit of time, a little bit of energy. I think this could really happen.
Wow.
But anyway, that's my thing. Okay, so the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right. Whenever the Olympics come on, you see like all the human interest stories, and you get these great, inspiring tales of what these athletes have done, right? And so part of the Olympics is also the triumph of the human spirit. Part of the Olympics is the triumph of diplomacy and recognizing our common humanity, and that we can all come together and be united around something. And so there's a real beauty in that. And that's part of the thing that I like. You'll see countries that have typically been opposed to one another shaking hands. You see a sense of just camaraderie, that what brings us together is this sport. And there's something really, really powerful about that. Well, of course, I'm a priest. I can't help but think about then the spiritual parallels
Oh yeah.
when it comes to the Olympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that got me thinking about St. Paul and some of the things that St. Paul writes and says, because as he's writing, he frequently uses the image of running.
Yeah, he does.
And he frequently uses the image of running a race. And so this comes up throughout many of his letters. But there's something really good there. It's a great analogy of this sport. So we read, for example, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, do you not know that in a race all the runners compete, but only one receives the prize? Run so that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I pummel my body and subdue it, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. All right, so we can see, and especially with the Olympics, since it's only coming up once every 4 years, these athletes dedicate their lives to training for the chance to compete. And then if they don't make it in the Olympics, they have to wait another 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, in an athlete's lifetime, 4 years is eternity.
Time.
There's so much possibility for injury, just getting older. There's so much that can happen. So they're doing this, and they just want to make the Olympics. Then they make the Olympics, and let's say they don't win, but they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got to come back 4 years later and try to do it again. And you're watching these people, and they're on a definite clock. Not only with the timing of the actual race or their event, but they're on a definite clock biologically.
Mm-hmm.
They've only got so much time where their athletic gifts are going to be fruitful.
Yeah.
And so they deny themselves all sorts of things. St. Paul already knew about this, right? Because the idea of the games was already something very common in the Greek world. So he understood that these athletes would deny themselves things so that they could win, so that they could do this. And he recognizes that this is actually normal, that they do this. Well, why can't we imitate that same discipline that they have in the spiritual life? So St. Paul's looking at the athletes and he's seeing this is a spiritual truth lived out incarnationally.
Yeah.
These athletes are showing us what the Christian life is supposed to be, but they're doing it with their bodies. And so he saw the incarnation of Christianity happening in those athletes, even if they weren't Christian. Mm-hmm. And then he's bringing this in. So then, like, this passage especially is one of those that's used for what's called muscular Christianity. Have you heard of muscular Christianity?
No, I have not.
So muscular Christianity kind of comes out in like the, let's say, late 18th, 19th century. Okay. This idea that no, to be Christian, it's manly.
Oh, interesting.
It's this very strong thing. So we have to be strong as Christians, okay. Which there's a lot of truth to that. Now, you can overdo it.
Yeah.
Right. You can easily overdo it and start thinking like Christianity is all about just being macho. That's nonsense. That's not what it is. But this sense of a real muscular Christianity that says I'm willing to deny myself all sorts of things. I am willing to give of myself and to be generous and to work hard at this. So I love how Paul does that. He draws that spiritual comparison, and that becomes a theme throughout his letters. And I think if we can look at the Olympics and be reminded of that, we're in a good spot. The Olympics show us that there's this genuine discipline that's taking place. And in the spiritual life, we need the same discipline.
And they're also, the thing with them is they're so inspiring. And you're like, man, well, look how much dedication they put into this, how much time or sacrifice. And your cost to contemplate on your own life, like, oh, can I add these things? Like if I'm just thinking of this one girl who ran a mile in 5 minutes and 35 seconds while 9 months pregnant. Okay. She then tried for the 5K. She didn't make the qualifying thing for the Olympics.
9 months pregnant?
Yes.
And she ran
a mile in 5 minutes and 35 seconds. She qualified for the 10K.
I need to know who this person is. This is amazing.
Oh yeah, she went viral on the internet about a year ago.
I can't run a mile in like less than 10 minutes.
This was insane. And now
I can't get pregnant.
So she did this. Like she was running like 7-8 miles a day, like while pregnant, because she had the Olympics that she was still like, I'm still gonna work for this.
Wow.
And so she did it.
That's amazing.
And I saw her husband's compilation of just like the entire journey, because people only see the glory part. No one sees a lot of behind the scenes stuff,
Right.
and like in a way, like that's what the Olympics is showing, like, oh my gosh, they made it, but we don't really see like the heart, the tears, the dedication that goes behind all of
Yeah.
this, what's going on mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. She was able to qualify for the 10K for the Olympic team, made it, and uh, is there now. Like it's just
Wow.
it's incredible how
That is awesome.
it just she had this goal in mind, and like, and she ran with her baby. Like that's so beautiful. Like having a child doesn't stop a woman from having dreams.
Mm.
And I think that was such a beautiful like example of that. She was just being herself. Like she just ran and she just did it, and it just like, yeah. I don't know the woman's name. I forgot. I just know that she went viral for a while, and then she had to come up on like my feed the other day. I'm like, oh,
That's pretty amazing.
that's what happened.
Wow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's so insane. So that's a beautiful example of it. But when you are able to hear the stories of these Olympians, one of my favorites right now is Tom Scott. Atlia, is that the right way to put it? Like the Catholic news agent.
Alexia.
Oh, is that what it is? I don't even know how to pronounce it. I call it Atlia. So he is a runner from Texas. I'm sorry, no, he's not a runner. He does karate. And he did not qualify for the Olympics in June.
Okay.
And he wrote this whole reflection post. I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is God's like way of just saying that I'm not called to be here. But just the way that he had surrendered to the reality that he might not go to the Olympics. But then it happens. Something happens where then he qualifies and he's able to go and he's able to do karate. And so he writes this. He goes, resurrection is one of God's preferred ways of telling great stories. He's the best author of all time and the creator of storytelling. I've been called to the front. I'm going to the Olympics. I have long prayed for increased dependence on God in all areas of my life. And while I felt so near to him following defeat, his plans are great and beyond me. I could never have imagined a story with beginnings like this. Yes, I earned my spot. I worked hard over 3 years to be where I needed to be. But at the end of the day, this is God-given. Looking back, I wouldn't have it any other way. I did not need this. What I mean is I made peace with pain and God reeled me in closer. The journey served its purpose. I don't see this as a reward for doing or saying the right things. Rather, I don't think our story here is finished. If you include your father in your journey, you can expect great things, but you have to be curious and reach out first. He is there waiting, I promise.
Oh, wow.
I was just like,
that's really good.
Yo, this guy, like, I don't even, like, this whole thing is just freaking amazing.
You're stuttering.
I'm
sputtering.
sorry.
It's great. I love it. I love that sense of peace that he's showing, but also the sense of excitement at the same time, and the recognition that God is present in his life, and that using this gift that he has for karate, for his sport, the training and the effort that he's put into it, there's also this sense of deep gratitude that now I have the opportunity to try again,
right,
to do something more.
Right. And
I didn't make it the first time, but now I've got this opportunity to do more with it.
Yeah.
And there's a sense that I need to be grateful to God himself for this opportunity.
Right. And
we don't often think that way. A lot of times these are the things that we get caught up thinking, this is me, I did this. But he's recognizing, no, in fact, this is God at work.
This is the other part that he says. He said, I would be a fool to be excited about the Olympics without recognizing the deeper, more amazing reality, which is that we have a God who hears us, denies us, grants us, builds us, leads us, and uses us if we're open to it. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to drop that real hard.
Why did you do that?
I'm sorry, that was really aggressive. It was supposed to be a mic drop, but it was an intense phone drop. I apologize for all you listeners. But it just like, oh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Like in all things, do you praise God? Like knowing that, I just love that. Like when he denies us, when he uses us, when like we suffer. At this point, this is like the best story that
It's fantastic.
the best testimony that I heard.
So this is a guy who has lost. This is a guy who has struggled.
Yeah.
And has persevered. And this is where St. Paul again comes in.
Yeah.
In 2 Timothy, he's writing about how he has run the race. He writes about this. I am already on the point of being sacrificed. The time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From now on, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. There's that that sense of, I have been in the battle. I have been working on all of this, and now I know that God is going to give me some sort of a reward. In this case, I don't know if he's won a medal or not, but in this case, whether he wins a medal or not, maybe his event is already over. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Whatever happens, the reward itself is that he had the opportunity to compete.
Exactly.
He had the opportunity to compete in this way, and not many people, we know, get that opportunity. So what a gift, and to be able to recognize that. Now, there's another part that is fascinating. Did you see what happened with Simone Biles?
Yes.
So she's the greatest women's gymnast of all time.
Yeah.
And she did not do well in the team event in her first round, in her first event, and she pulled herself out of the competition. She said, mentally, I'm not able to do this. And there's two things that are going to happen. If I'm not in a good headspace to do this, I'm going to hurt myself physically, but I'm also going to hurt my team.
Yeah.
And for these women who have trained and competed so hard, I need to step out so that they can do the thing that's best for them. I need them to be able to shine. So she was ready to take a step back. No, she's the greatest. She's the greatest athlete. And she has done all these incredible things. There are things that no one else can do. She was willing to take a step back.
Yeah.
The humility that takes,
and
the self-awareness that takes.
Sucks that so many people, though, were bashing her for saying like it, in a way, like that was un-American. Like, how dare you do that? I was like, this girl, yes, she's incredible, but to recognize at the end of the day, it's not this.
Well, this isn't the only thing. This sport is not the only thing. There are bigger things. But just in the immediate context, she recognized that not only was she herself physically at risk, but it was bigger than that. It was unselfish.
Yeah.
It was to recognize that these other women might be hurt by her attempt to stay in. And so it takes humility to be able to say, I'm not able to do this, and I need to take a step back.
Yeah.
But that's John the Baptist. He must increase, I must decrease. That's a John the Baptist moment of being able to take a step back and say, no, I'm not the only one. You need to take this step forward now. And she pushed her teammates to do well and to compete well. And they did. They won a silver medal. To medal in the Olympics is a big deal. It's not the gold that they wanted, of course.
Right.
But they medaled, and they did incredibly well. And it was because Simone Biles had that courage to take a step back and say, I can't do this today. You need to do it.
Yeah.
But then she also has pulled herself out of the all-around competition, the individual. She said, I'm not able to do this. For a world-class athlete to be able to admit at that highest level, I won't be able to compete. I'm not in the right place.
Yeah.
Again, a profound humility, and I think something that should really be admired.
Right.
Of course, we'd want to see her compete. She's great.
Yeah.
And of course, you'd want to see people who are the best at what they do compete. And there's a certain way, professionally, you look at professional athletes, and they'll play through an injury because somebody came to see them. Because this might be the only time, Kobe Bryant was famous for saying that. This might be the only time that somebody gets to see Kobe Bryant play. And so he would push himself to play even when he was injured. And he was always sad when he physically was unable to perform because he felt like he was disappointing people. And you hear about this from other athletes too. They have this sense of responsibility, a responsibility to the fans, to the people who are watching because they've paid, they've done this. And it's an appropriate sense. It's not I don't think it's an undue sense of pressure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for someone to be able to realize I can't do this, there's a good lesson for the fan, for the people who are watching, to realize not everyone can do everything every time exactly the way that we want them to.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've got to give them that freedom to be human.
That's why you love the Mets.
No, I love the Mets because I'm a glutton for punishment. I love the Mets because I love suffering, because I'm I don't know, a masochist or something. I don't know. There's something profoundly wrong with my psyche that I'm a Mets fan. But I mean, the Mets are, if you're a Catholic, they help you to make sense of suffering. They help you to understand the cross. They help you to understand fasting and perseverance and all of that stuff. And to just hope, to always be a man of hope. That's really what the Mets teach. Okay, now I want to come back to something, because with the Olympics and all of that great competition stuff and all those amazing stories that you get, the human interest piece, the power of what these athletes do, the way they deny themselves, and the spiritual connections that we can have there. There's also this other side, which is we're watching people compete.
Yeah.
And competition, properly ordered, has something good. Competition is something that can make something good happen, where I want to be better. And so competition sharpens my skills. Iron sharpens iron, right? We say that all
Yeah.
the time in the spiritual life. Iron sharpens iron. So if I'm competing against someone, I'm trying to get better at something. But there can also be a way that competition gets kind of twisted.
Yeah.
So if I'm competing against you and you're winning, I can start to get jealous that you're better than me. I can start to assign to you bad motives. I can start to resent you because you're better than me. On the other hand, if I'm better than you, if I'm winning, I can start to think less of you as a person.
Yeah.
Not just that I have a higher level of skill than you, but that you're not a good person and you're less than me. And so I start to deny your dignity. Competition twisted in the wrong way can become something that's very divisive and very bad.
Right.
Right. And this is something that can happen in the life of the church. One of the things that I've learned as a pastor, for example, is I'll hear that somebody has decided to leave the parish or go somewhere else. And every once in a while that comes in the form of an angry letter, because you're not helping me anymore, and I need to go to this parish that I think is just a better place. And what I've learned to do is just bring that to the Lord and say, Lord, take care of them, because if I'm not able to feed them, if I'm not able to do what needs to be done, then you have to. And if they're going somewhere where they're finding spiritual nourishment, then I have to be grateful to you. It means that there's something that I can't provide for them, but you still provide, Lord. But if I get competitive and start thinking I'm going to be better than that parish, I'm going to make this place better than that next one over there, what good is that? Because then all that's happening is I'm creating division, in town or with other parishes, with brother priests or something like that. And that's not helpful. Instead, it's got to be, there's no competition. I rejoice when I hear that this priest has done a great job. When somebody comes and tells me how grateful they are about a priest who helped them out at some event or in the hospital or something else, thank God. What a gift. How awesome that is. I've got to be able to rejoice that somebody has been impacted by another priest's ministry. Likewise, I think with youth ministry or something like that. Like we took the kids, we did Catholic Heart Work Camp, and maybe one of our kids talked to an adult from another group, and it really helped them. Or you've had the experience of being the adult from the other group that talks to a kid who isn't one of yours.
Yeah.
Thank God that you were there, and that in that moment the Lord wanted to use you to build up. Right?
Yeah.
But it can be hard for us to do that. And sometimes with that spirit of competition, we start thinking it's about what are my results, and are my results better than yours?
Yep.
And so can I do a better job? This is where St. Paul comes again, right?
I want a St. Paul kick.
He says this in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. He says, "For while there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving like ordinary men? For when one says, I belong to Paul, and another, I belong to Apollos, are you not merely men? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are equal, and each shall receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building." Apollos is another preacher of the gospel. Yeah. And he preaches basically alongside Paul, in parallel to Paul. And at first there are people who are against that, or they think, okay, I follow what Apollos teaches, not what Paul teaches. So I belong to Apollos, so I belong to Paul, this whole thing. Even this happens with the apostles too. As Jesus goes out teaching, they say, we saw this man casting out demons in your name. We should prevent him. We should make him stop. And he goes, whoever is not against me is for me. If he's doing this in my name, then let him do it. This is good. Would that everyone were prophets. Would that everyone had this gift. That spirit of competition, something, no, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. It's something for me to hold on to. That's Gnosticism. Yeah. Right? Gnosticism is that heresy that says that I have some sort of secret knowledge that no one else can have. And that my holding on to that secret knowledge gives me some sort of a privilege, gives me something special, makes me better than someone else. Yeah. And to desire that is really a disordered way of looking at the ministry. It's a disordered way of looking at preaching the gospel. So competition's good. Yeah. Nothing bad there. but there's got to be a deeper sense of what we're competing for.
So I have this as you're speaking, I'm literally thinking of all the moments that I have been jealous or resented other people, maybe because they were better missionaries or whatever, or like, they had seen what I perceived had been given gifts from God that I wasn't getting. And this like stems from like college all the way on. And I had this recognition at some point after a few years that I had grown jealous of other people. One, because I was incapable of rejoicing in the gifts God had given them, but because I actually did not believe God wanted to give me good gifts as his daughter. So when I don't have that filial trust with the Father, that the Father's taking care of me too, and I'm confident and secure in that, in a way I'm not able to rejoice in other people's gifting and rejoice with them. And it's stemming from like this like weird orphan spirit that you're carrying around, and the gospel is trying to get you back to the Father. That's where your security is. And so when Tom Scott wrote all of that, I'm like, this man is so secure in his identity as a son. He is so secure in the love of the Father. And like, he knows that whatever comes, like, this is what's going to stand at the end of the day. And so, but to enter into competition, there's the way to do it that glorifies God,
Right on.
and because at the root of it is this freedom in the Father. So are we living free as sons and daughters, trusting that in God's prophets, like, God, you're going to give me the grace that I need today, to live out today for your glory, to be healed, to know you. And it's just incredible. So that when I started really moving and actually having to encounter that ache that I didn't believe in God's goodness for me, that he actually wanted to be good in my life. Once I started entering into that, and like these lies started to dispel, and the Father was just so good and so gentle in revealing his care for each of us, and in detail, that once you enter into that, then sometimes, he does like glorify himself and just give you favors. And I remember at one point in my life, I was getting a lot of favors from the Lord, and a family member had kind of looked at me and they said, well, that's not fair. I've been here the whole time. So it literally was, like this family member saw themselves as the older son, and here I am getting all these gifts and favors that doesn't make sense for them. And I was talking to her friend about this, and I said, it's because she doesn't know the Father's love for her. That's why she's saying it in that way. And then her friend was like, oh, bro, yeah, that's right. I was like, but not in a way that was like, like I'm trying to bring her down, but it was like, I can see sometimes when someone is not living in the security of the Father, and there's a struggle there. And you want to invite them into that, right? But it's kind of like on their own journey, to really begin to ask those questions. But all of it roots down to, do I trust that God is provider, and truly loves me? And
another component of what you're talking about, this sense of resentment or jealousy of other people because of the spiritual gifts that they've received, that comes from being untrained. See, go back to what Paul is talking about. Athletes deny themselves all sorts of things so that they can train, so that they can get better, so they can get stronger. And then once they have trained, they start running the race. We can very easily get jealous of someone because they're good at something, but we've not tried it. We've not actually attempted, right? I can watch somebody and say they've got this great skill. Man, I wish I had that skill, but I've never tried to develop it myself.
Right.
If I've never made the effort, if I haven't really taken that step to develop the skill, to practice, then I really don't have anything to be jealous of.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I'm working hard at the skill and struggling, and somebody else seems to be better because it comes more naturally to them, then all right, I can understand a little bit of that jealousy sort of building up. But most often I think that when we're feeling that sense of spiritual jealousy, spiritual resentment, or just I wish that I had those gifts, those consolations that this person is receiving,
right,
most often that's coming from a place where I have not exercised that skill enough myself. I have not trained enough yet. G.K. Chesterton writes about this. He says, that Christianity has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found hard and left untried. And
That's too hard. I'm not doing it anymore.
But how often is that exactly how, I mean,
Yeah.
that's even how people join gyms, right?
Yeah.
On January 1st, they join a gym, they sign up for their year-long gym membership, and they go for a month and they go, this is hard. I don't want to do this. And they quit.
Yeah.
And they still have the gym membership, so the gym's fine because they got paid. But people stop going. They give up on doing that exercise because it is hard.
Yeah.
And they can easily give up when they feel the challenge really weighing on them, and they see other people who have been practicing and journeying and training for a long time, and they see that they're already successful, and they think, I want to be that way. They forget that it's not the quick fix, quick sprint. It's the long term. It's the marathon. It's the 4 years of training leading up to the Olympics. It's all the competitions, the smaller competitions that happen along the way. That's what gets you to this level. Until you are in that battle and in that long-term sense of training, you can't possibly feel that justifiable sense of envy.
Right. I think another thing too is now I'm at a point where much more secure in my identity than I was 10 years ago.
Sure.
Praise Jesus. And I love watching other people who are better than me, because it gives me a marker. Okay, like you're really good at this in your spiritual life. You're inspiring me to try harder or to adjust something else in my life. In a sense, there's a freedom to pursue greatness. And now you're pursuing greatness, but for different reasons, not because of an insecurity. Like, I need to be the best because I'm actually insecure in, X, Y, and Z in my life. But I want to pursue greatness because this is like authentically me. Like, I can grow in this. Because of my security in the Father, but also like, what is the best version of myself? Like, I can pursue that, and that is good, and that glorifies God. I can't remember the quote. I'm gonna have to remember this. It's just like this little poem about how, a flower doesn't stop blooming because the flower next to it has, it seems to be more beautiful. Like, it's still gonna bloom next to it. It gives it permission to be a flower. Like, flowers aren't in competition with each other, yet we think so many of them are beautiful.
Well, sometimes they are, because they're trying to get all the sunlight and the photosynthesis and everything, so they're going to try to block the other ones.
Okay, well, now we're going to be technical, but but in a garden, Saint Therese of Lisieux has this beautiful image of a garden. She's not everybody in the garden is a rose.
Right.
God's garden is so diverse, and yet each of them are so needed and unique and beautiful. And, for me, that image was so helpful for me to hear that, oh, I don't have to be like this rose.
Yeah.
My favorite flower is a daisy. Let me be a great, simple little flower. Like, I'm okay with that. And there's a freedom in that, and,
For sure,
and so Saint Therese is just so beautiful in that meditation.
There's also a way in which, as you're competing, as you're striving for these things and trying to get better and better and better, you come to understand what your actual capacity is and what you're going to be.
Yeah.
So Therese writes about this also, and St. Paul, again, coming back to Paul. He's writing about the spiritual gifts, and he writes all about how some are given gifts of prophecy, some are given gifts of tongues, some are given interpretations of tongues, some are given the gift of teaching and administration and all these things. And he outlines the gifts of the Spirit, and he says, strive eagerly for the greatest spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
But what is the greatest? The greatest of these is love. And Therese comes to understand that her vocation is to be love at the heart of the church. And so if she is to be love at the heart of the church, she starts to understand, I'm not going to be the one who's going out and getting martyred. I'm not going to be the great missionary converting nations. I'm not going to be the one who goes out and does all of these things. And I'm not going to get any recognition.
Right.
Instead, I'm going to be love at the heart of the church, and I'm going to strive to have that greatest of all spiritual gifts. Well, there's a great power there.
Yeah.
To say I'm going to strive after the greatest spiritual gifts in my own particular context, and that God knows what I need, and God will build me up in that. Now, that means all called to the life of virtue, all called to be heroic. Every single person, no matter who they are, is still called to that, but there's going to be different ways that it's manifested. And there's a danger sometimes for us in the spiritual life of thinking, I have to be just like this Catholic speaker who I saw at this conference. I have to speak the same way as them. I have to do the same things that they do. Fulton Sheen would say that you shouldn't try to preach like Fulton Sheen.
Yeah.
You have to preach in your own voice. And when somebody tries to preach like Fulton Sheen,
you could totally pick it up.
Yeah, it's not going to sound right.
Stop trying. trying.
You got to be who you are.
Yeah.
And that authenticity is what God wants to use. He
Right.
wants to use who you are and
Yeah.
what you are. Nevertheless, that still means training.
Right.
But there comes a point where you realize that my training and my own spiritual growth in training, not meaning like I went to seminary, but in my own spiritual life, I've prayed and I've worked on my relationship with God, and I've
Growing in
allowed
the
God to give me these
virtues.
things.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to realize that the Lord has not called me to certain things, and he has called me to others. And those things that he has desired for me to do are going to be good, and they're going to be my own thing.
Yeah. And
that
so
the
in a
Lord
way,
has
your
given.
particular charism.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what's so exciting is you get to discover. So the last 2 weeks in my own personal prayer, I've actually been more intentional about, God, what are these gifts that you've given me? Even myself, I can forget and I don't use them. And God will give me certain opportunities like, hey, remember that gift I gave you? How are you using it? I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, let's work on that.
Yeah.
But maybe what I realized too, there's this fear that I have to use it, because what if I'm just doing it because I want attention or something? Or is this from you, God? Is this from the enemy? Is this my own voice? Is it pride? But also this fear of, could it actually be that good? That's one
Yeah.
thing that I had recognized is like, could it actually be this good? Because when I've entered into the gifts, when I've really put myself out in there, and I was talking about that with my small group at the young adult meeting, I have experienced glimpses of my authentic self that God wanted me to know about myself. And it's amazing that when I step into a particular space that I question, but God shows up in that moment, and I have never felt more myself than in these moments.
Yeah.
And so there's this fear of greatness, which is crazy, because like at the same time we want to be great, but I'm a little afraid
But then
to
there's
be
also
great.
that way in which God has molded your own desire. So once upon a time, you might have wanted one thing.
Yeah.
You wanted this kind of recognition. You wanted to be seen in this way. But now, because of your training, because you've been engaging with the Lord spiritually, because you've denied yourself all sorts of things, now you've come to a place of accepting what the Lord wants of you.
Yeah.
As you accept it, then the next challenge can be, oh no, what if that's too much?
Right.
like I thought I wanted one thing, but in fact, God wanted me to do something completely different. Oh no, what if it's too much? So
Yeah.
part of the reason that the Olympics speak to me in such a powerful way is that growing up, sports were huge for me. My brother is the athlete. I am not. I got the music genes. He got the athletic genes. But there's something there. Like growing up, we played in the backyard constantly. We both love sports. My whole family, we like watching sports. We enjoy it. Sports was always sort of it was a filter through which we could see all kinds of things. We can mark times in our lives and ages by what was happening with the Mets, with the Knicks. What sports memory do we have from that particular time? And that's how we can judge what year it was. That's how we can judge in our memories what was going on. It's completely true. So these things were always really important to us.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be better at sports than I was. And I never had the heart for the training. It was not something that I could really dive into in the same way. My brother could play for hours and hours and hours and never get tired of it. There was just something in him, I think, and he was gifted, and he had a mind for it too. Like, talk to my brother about baseball. He knows more about strategy in baseball than like anybody who I know, and he's brilliant with it. But you get into these things and you start to realize I can't do this. I'm not very good at it, and that can be discouraging.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this, I still want it. I still want to do this.
Yeah.
And I remember like trying sports right up through high school and just realizing at a certain point in high school, no, wait a second, I'm not good at this. And that's okay. I don't have to be good at this in order to have friends. I don't have to play this sport in order to have people like me. I can still enjoy sports and I can still support my friends who play these sports, but I don't have to be the guy doing that. And you know what? That's actually great. I can go do other things. And those other things that I can do are going to actually correspond more to things that make me happy. I'm going to feel more confident about it. But then I started realizing that in the spiritual life, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the guy who does these things. I don't have to be the guy who is well-known, published, famous on all this stuff. I can do other things. There might still be that desire, like, hey, it would be really cool if I had a book published or something like that. And I don't have time to write a book, but it would still be cool if I had a book published, But when am I going to sit down and write one?
Yeah.
Right? It would be really cool if I got to go and do all these different things, and if people wanted to hear me do stuff, and that would be fun.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't have to be that guy, and that's okay. And recognizing that instead, the race that I am assigned to run, the lane that I'm assigned to run in, is going to be different than the race that somebody else has to run.
Right.
I've been given this event.
Yes.
And when I can say, thank you, Jesus, for giving
that's a
me
good way
this
to put it.
event, thank you for giving me this sport to play.
Yeah.
Not literal sport, right?
No.
But like,
I like it.
When I can recognize that this is what the Lord has set me to do, I want to do that as well as I can. I want to train as well as I can for this sport, for this lane, for this race, and leave the rest to other people, trusting that God has raised up people who are supposed to win that race, who are supposed to compete well in that sport.
And he does.
Exactly. He does. So it doesn't depend on me.
No.
And I can very confidently let that go, give that to the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's where this all kind of comes together. So here we have the Olympics.
Yeah.
Those inspiring days, those powerful stories. We see these great witnesses of the human spirit, of human triumph, but also people who are witnessing to their faith. We've got these people out there who are, as Catholic athletes in particular, not afraid to share the goodness of their faith, and who are just deeply in love with the Lord and want to show that they're trying to live their lives for the glory of God.
Yeah.
We're called into that race too.
Yeah. Amen. I don't know what to add to that. It was just a really good ending.
Let's wrap it there. Thanks, Paola.
Yeah, thanks, Father Sam. This is We're Like the Lamb. I'm Paola Peña.
I'm Father Sam Kachuba.